Welcome to Toastmaster Time, the show that has everybody talking. I'm James Jeffley, and I'll be your host for this edition of Toastmaster Time. Just like in a regular Toastmasters meeting, tonight we're going to have prepared speeches, and then we will give feedback from our very own evaluator to help our speakers improve. I'd like to welcome our evaluator back to the show, Trich Gray.
Hi, James. Tonight we have an informative show. We have two experienced speakers. The first one's going to talk about finding our voice. We all need to improve our communication skills. Our second speaker is going to show us the difference between manipulation and persuasion, so we can spot the difference and not be taken in by some swindler. I think we're all going to be learning some good lessons out of this show.
It sounds like a great show, and I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback a little later, Trish. Right now, it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker to the show, Karen Leffler. Karen, welcome to Toastmaster Time.
Thank you. A delight to be here.
How long have you been a member of Toastmasters?
I have been a member for over 21 years already.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And what's been the most important thing you've learned in your 21-year tenure with Toastmasters?
What I found through Toastmasters was a career change. At the age of 47, I was terrified of even saying my name in front of a group. Terrifying, but I knew that if I could overcome that fear of speaking, that I could do anything. I just didn't have a clue what it was. And Toastmaster gave me the confidence to change careers totally and become keynote speakers at conferences.
Wow. Now you've got three letters at the end of your name, DTM. What does that mean in Toastmasters?
It means Distinguished Toastmaster, which is the highest recognition of achievement a member can receive for the educational work and giving speeches, as well as taking on leadership roles.
Well, thank you so much for your service.
Thanks.
Are you ready to give your speech?
Yes.
Stay there for just a moment. We'll give you a chance to prepare and get organized. While you do that, I want to tell our audience a little bit about what a manual speech is. A manual speech is a speech that is crafted to meet a specific set of objectives from one of the 17 manuals provided by Toastmasters, which cover all manner of speaking assignments one might have to give out in the real world, using props, vocal variety, body language, humor, etc. And at our club meetings, we encourage our members to act as evaluators for each other and give valuable feedback. Here at Toastmaster Time, we're no different. We have our very own evaluator, Trich Gray. Trish, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What are Karen's objectives and what are you looking for tonight?
Karen is going to be speaking out of the Competent Communicator Manual. This is project number 6, Vocal Variety. Her objectives are to use her voice, volume, pitch, rate, quality to reflect and then add some meaning and interest to our speakers, hold their attention. Use pauses to enhance her message, and then it should be a nice, smooth transition from one type of vocal variety to another. That's what I'm going to be looking for out of her speech.
So it's not just what she says, but how she says it.
Yes, to help the audience understand the message better by using her voice.
Wonderful. Karen Leffler tonight is going to give us a series of 3 personal stories that demonstrate the importance of our voice, whether we're 10 or 110. And she's going to share her story of how she lost her voice, but then later found it. Karen Leffler, Finding Your Voice, Karen Leffler.
I was only 10 years old when it happened to me. Something that was so devastating and so traumatic that it would control my life for the next 35 years. At 10 years old, I was the teacher's pet. I love school. I love participating in class. And on this particular day, we were to give a book report. When the teacher asked for a volunteer who wanted to read their book report, I eagerly raised my hand. And as I returned to my seat, to envious applause, the teacher said, "That was wonderful, Karen. And now I'd like to read a book report from somebody who is not here today." And she proceeded to pick up the book, open the cover, and read verbatim, word for word, exactly what I had just read from my very perfect penmanship. You see, I hadn't read the book. Well, I learned a lot about using somebody else's words in that moment, but in that embarrassing and excruciating moment of self-discovery, I also lost my voice. No longer would I participate in class. No longer would I raise my hand. No longer would I share any kind of enthusiasm along the way. And that fear of speaking stayed with me through college and into my careers. Now, fast forward 35 years. I now have a 10-year-old son named Kevin, and he comes home from school one day visibly upset. And he proceeds to tell me a story about how he would have been killed had it not been for jumping back onto a safety island in the middle of the intersection where 4 cars collided around him. And I told him, I said, Kevin, the city is going to remove that safety island. And he said, well, that's stupid. And at that point, I suggested he maybe write a letter to the Planning Commission or the police department. And he did. From there, they suggested he get a petition going. And he did. With 3 schools involved and 400 signatures, he brought the petition to the Planning Commission again, and they suggested he take it to City Hall. And he did. By this time, the news was out in the community. Everybody was interested. They had front page stories in the newspaper. He was getting calls in the morning before school to be on talk radio. TV reporters were coming in to interview him in the middle of the intersection to tell his story about why this was so important to him. And his answer was simple. People are more important than cars. It was at that point I realized how powerful Kevin's voice was and how it had made a difference. And I knew at that point I needed to do something about my overwhelming fear of speaking. And that's when I joined Toastmasters, and where I have remained a member for over 21 years. Now, in that moment, I learned that Kevin's voice was important. His voice mattered to him. It mattered to his self-esteem and his self-confidence and how he perceived the world. It was important that he share something he was passionate about. And what he was passionate about was the safety of every person who crossed that intersection. It mattered to him that children were safe. But what we talk about, what is important, is that we share things we're passionate about, and it doesn't matter what it is. It could be about the economy or politics or childhood diabetes or animals. Because when you share what you're passionate about, we learn. And we learn from that listening. I remember a time when I was back in New York on a business trip, and this nice-looking gentleman asked to sit next to me, introducing himself as Nick. And every person who came by our table kept referring to him as Your Honor, Your Honorable Griner. And I said, what is it you do, Nick? And he said, I'm the Prime Minister of New South Wales. Great. I'm sitting next to a politician, and politics are my least favorite topic of conversation. But I asked another question. I said, what is it about politics that you like? And he said, power. And I asked one more question. I said, what is it about power that intrigues you? And he said, the ability to create change. And in that moment, Nick and I began a wonderful conversation. Realizing that our voice has the power to create change was made evident to me after only my second speech in Toastmasters, where I was just sharing about my volunteer work for Adopt a Family at holiday time. And I was telling the story of 3 families that were in need of adoption. At the end of the meeting, our club decided to adopt those 3 families. Wow. In 5 minutes, in my second speech, I had made a difference in the lives of 3 families. And in that moment, I found my voice again. In conclusion, what I want you to know is that your voice matters. Your voice matters to your own self-esteem and self-confidence and how you perceive and are perceived in the world. Your voice is important, that we hear what you care about, what you're passionate about, so that we can learn and do something about it. And your voice has the power to create change, not only in your own family environment and in your community, but you have the power to create wonderful change in our world.
Wow, that was great. What did you think of her speech?
I liked it a lot, and partly for two main reasons. One is there's the vocal variety that she used, and you could tell when she was very passionate about something or it meant something to her, where she talked about starting with a personal story as a young child in class. You know, I love speaking in class. You could tell that that was something she enjoyed, but then you could tell she got softer through the story when the teacher called her out for using someone else's work. But then you could also tell when she talked about her son and you know, when she said that they were going to tear out the media, and he's like, that's stupid. So you could see where she was adding that emotion that was very important. But the second thing that I liked was when she talks about finding your voice, it's not just the emotion in your words, it's also your message. So she's using finding your voice to mean the sound, conveying the passion, but in addition, conveying the message. I also liked her conclusion where she repeated several times, your voice matters, your voice is important, your voice, you know, so it's always the, okay, first it was about her, and now it's about you. It's her call to action. It's time for you to get up and find your voice and create change in the world.
Right. And I love that too, how it wasn't just about her voice as a vehicle to communicate her message. It was also about finding that message within you. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about Toastmasters is we get a chance to stand up there and not only perfect the mechanics of speaking, but also find that message within us that wants to come out and wants to be shared with the world. And that impacts other people and allows them to find their voice too.
You know, I'm just going to give a short plug for Toastmasters because most people come to Toastmasters wanting to improve their own speaking skills. And the goal with Toastmasters is to pull a little switcheroo, which is once you find your voice and build your skills, you then want to take those skills out into your community to create a stronger community. So that's kind of the little switch we pull with Toastmasters. We suck you in with your own, you know, I want to improve myself, but then we want you to turn around and improve everyone else also.
And that's why I think we epitomize our slogan, where leaders are made. Well, for right now, we need to take a short break. You're watching Toastmaster Time. We'll be right back.
Name an effective political leader in history who couldn't speak well.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
There aren't any.
Because when it comes to a disease,
Freedom requires leadership, and leadership requires oratory. You have to speak to be heard.
I have a dream.
It's all about personal growth and guts.
Never give in. Never, never, never.
Welcome back to Toastmaster Time, the show that has everybody talking. I'm James Jeffley, your host, and I am thrilled to introduce our next speaker, Nate Woods. Nate, welcome to the show.
Thank you, James. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, this is not your first time on Toastmaster Time, is it?
It is my second time. Last time around, I served as the evaluator.
And now you get to be a speaker. How long have you been in Toastmasters?
Just starting out, so I'm about 2 years in.
2 years in. And what made you decide to join Toastmasters?
I'll say I was strongly encouraged by upper management in my in my work.
You should go to this thing.
Wound up being fantastic advice.
Great. And what's been the best experience for you so far in Toastmasters?
The best experience for me is I've discovered a passion, which is sharing ideas with other people and helping other people find their own voice.
A familiar theme tonight.
Familiar theme.
Are you ready to give your speech?
I am.
Stay there for just a moment. I want to talk to our audience a little bit about what Toastmasters is and how we might be able to help them while you get set up. Toastmasters International is a worldwide organization dedicated to helping people overcome their fear and anxiety about public speaking and to also develop important communication and leadership skills. Currently, we have about 345,000 members in approximately 16,000 clubs in 142 nations around the globe. And after having recently attended my 3rd international conference, I can tell you Toastmasters makes a difference in the lives of individuals all across the planet. And for someone who's going to make a difference in the life of one of our speakers in terms of our evaluation, welcome back, Trich Gray.
Thank you.
Trich, what are Nate's objectives and what are you looking for in his speech?
Nate is speaking from an advanced manual. This is speaking to inform. This is project number 3, the demonstration speech. His objective is to prepare a demonstration speech to clearly explain a process, product, or activity. When he's done, we should know exactly how to do whatever that activity is he's defined.
All right. Well, Nate is giving a speech where he's going to talk about how to identify the differences between influence and manipulation, how to spot them. Nate Woods, spotting manipulation. Spotting manipulation, Nate Woods.
Viewers, hello and welcome. This presentation is all about influence, manipulation, and how to identify these two things, as well as how they're different. This presentation is for a subset of the audience. Specifically, we're looking for people who fit 3 descriptions. The first description is we're looking for people who are generally good at knowing who to trust, and yet they have been tricked. We're looking for people who have been disappointed by a role model. Now, this may have been very recent, or this may have been some years ago. The third description is we're looking for people who have a lot of ideas. They're constantly coming up with new thoughts. Now, these might be completely from within themselves. They might be triggered from an external stimulus. But the kind of people we're looking for always have these ideas. Now, if that sounds like you, there's a really specific reason as to why that is. That reason is my entire introduction was nothing more than influence and manipulation tactics. My very first word, viewers. My hands go out to the sides, they're at navel height, and palms are up. This is what Mark Bowden would say triggers your instinctive mind to recognize me as part of your tribe. Sounds crazy, let me break it down for you shortly. The hands are at navel height. This is where our hands naturally go to when we're being the most sincere. The palms are up, displaying to you and your instinctual mind that I don't have weapons, and my hands are out, exposing all of my vital organs. I'm making myself vulnerable, I am not threatening you, and I'm being sincere. That triggers you instinctively to recognize me as someone you might trust. Moving from the hands to the face, we see what Vanessa Van Edwards would call micro-expressions. The eyebrows lift. Eyebrows lifting as a micro-expression commonly indicates that I recognize you. When we follow that up with a smile and a head tilting back, well, that means I'm happy to see you, and again, I'm making myself vulnerable by showing you my neck. So I recognize you, I'm happy to see you, and I'm not threatened. That came off the first word of the introduction. Starting from the second word forward, we move into our principles of persuasion. Liking is one of the principles of persuasion. Again, I greet you with open eyes, a smile, open hands. It's clear that I like you. Human nature is to like people that like us, and so that is our first principle. Moving forward, there is a principle of authority. Now, I'm sitting here in a suit and tie, I'm in a video production studio, and it appears that I am an authority and quite possibly someone you should pay attention to. Social proof is another of these principles. I was introduced by 2 speakers who both said they're really looking forward to the message I have to share. If socially everyone is looking forward to what I have to say and are ready to listen to it, it makes sense on an instinctual level that it's something you should listen to as well. Now that sounds a little dark, but I'll tell you right now, influence is a wonderful thing. Okay, it's great to smile at people and be happy to see them. It's really good to be nice and friendly, especially to strangers. There's nothing at all wrong with putting your hands out when you greet someone you know or someone you trust. This helps build trust between us, and it actually helps humans go about creating wonderful societies. We move from influence, which personal opinion I love, into manipulation as soon as I start talking about the descriptions. Manipulations are different. They are very targeted, and they are deceitful. When I ask if you generally are good at knowing who to trust or you have been tricked, what I'm talking about is a rainbow ruse. I talk about one thing, you're good at trusting people, and the exact opposite, that you have been tricked. Human nature is you're going to attach to whatever sounds right. If I throw out two opposites, you're going to recognize one as being correct. The next thing I said is a Barnum phrase. A Barnum phrase sounds really personal. I'm talking about a role model and disappointment. It feels like it's spoken just for you. However, everyone, at least every adult I've ever come across, has been disappointed at least once by someone they considered a role model. We finish this with another Barnum statement that's really just a compliment, in that you have a lot of ideas. And I'm sure you do, all humans do. That's what makes it a Barnum statement. People also like getting credit for having lots of ideas. So it's a compliment, it's a Barnum statement, you've already come along this path, and your brain is pre-wired to believe it. What on earth can you do? Well, give yourself extra time. If someone is coming to you, and it seems as though they may have a motive, say, you know, that sounds great, let me get right back to you. Even better, bring in someone else you know and you trust. It's much more difficult to manipulate two people, especially when one is brought in after the groundwork of the manipulation has been laid. So what have we seen? We've seen influence, we've seen manipulation, we've seen how they're different, and we have an idea of what to do going forward. Thank you so much for your time.
Trish, you have some great ideas, and I'm looking forward to hearing them.
Oh my goodness, yeah, I just couldn't stop. I'd have to watch this over and over because there was a lot of good information in there. It was a demonstration speech, and at the end of it, we're supposed to be able to do whatever it is he said we were going to do, which in his case was discern the difference between influence versus manipulation. And he was very clear. He worked all the way through it. He also demonstrated. I loved at the beginning, he did his opening, viewers and, you know, hands out at the navel, and then you move them out to the side. And then once he went through his opening, then he went back to his opening step by step and said, let me show you what I did. You know, I used this word, I put my hands here, I put my hands here. So it's not only using words, he's also going back and demonstrating piece by piece what he did and why he did it.
Right.
I also liked that when he moved to the next part, when he talked about, okay, we did influence, now let's talk about manipulation, which is on the same path as influence, but it's targeted and it's deceitful. I also loved the phrase about the Barnum phrase. I'm guessing he's talking about P.T. Barnum from Circus fame. Yeah, so he might want to have defined the fact, you know, what that meant. You and I may know who P.T. Barnum was, but perhaps other people did not. And then for his closing, he then told you how to avoid the manipulation, which is that do the delay or bring in a second person. I thought this was very descriptive. I thought it was very informative, and I'll have to see what I can do about applying some of these.
I agree. I thought it was great too, and it felt in a way like a magician who was deconstructing the trick. Let me show you the magic now. Let me tell you how the trick actually works. I think it was great advice. We're going to take another short break. You're watching Toastmaster Time. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Name an effective political leader in history who couldn't speak well.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
There aren't any.
Because when it comes to a disease,
Freedom requires leadership, and leadership requires oratory. You have to speak to be heard.
I have a dream.
It's all about personal growth and guts.
Never give in. Never, never, never.
Welcome back to Toastmaster Time, the show that has everybody talking. I'm James Jeffley, and I'm here with Trich Gray, our evaluator. We've heard two wonderful speeches tonight, and I thought you gave some great feedback.
I look forward to actually watching these speeches over and over because I think both of them had lots of good information for us and our audience.
Absolutely, and I hope our viewers watch these speeches as well as other speeches available on our website and on YouTube. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all for our show today. I want to thank you for joining us here on Toastmaster Time. We tape our show in the San Francisco Bay Area, and if you'd like more information about our show, please visit our website at toastmastertime.com. We're sponsored by Toastmasters District 57, and for local information, check our website at d57tm.org. And if you'd like more information about Toastmasters International, or if you'd like to find the location of a Toastmasters club near you, visit toastmasters.org. We appreciate all of the wonderful staff here at the Media Center in Palo Alto, where our show is taped. I'd like to again thank our guest speakers, Karen Leffler and Nate Woods, and our very own Trich Gray for a wonderful job evaluating. From all of us here at Toastmaster Time, I'm James Jeffley. We invite you to attend Toastmasters meetings and keep talking.